Okay, part 2 of the tutorial. We are going to add a right key event for the standing Lazarus object. So you're going to reopen the standing Lazarus object by double-clicking on it. And we'll start by creating actions to handle moving to the right. So we need to click Add Event. We're going to click Key Press. And we're going to click Right Event. So click Right. And we're going to include the Check Collision action in the Control tab. So if you go down to the Control tab over here, we've never used this one before. We're going to choose one called Check Collision, and that's this one right up at the top. Click, hold, drag to the actions. This action allows us to check that there would be a collision if we moved this instance to a particular position on the screen. We need to make sure that Lazarus is on solid ground before allowing him to move. He shouldn't be able to jump when he's standing on thin air. So to check that this is the case, we're going to select X or set X to 0. And we're just going to set Y to 8, which is slightly below his current position, and enable the relative option. And then click OK. So all of the remaining actions in this event depend upon the previous condition. They only need to be activated if the condition is true. So consequently, we'll need to include them all between start block and end block actions. So what we're going to do, stay in the Control tab. This is the start block action. See how it indents there? It's a start block. Now we're going to include check empty conditional action. That's this in the top left. And when you let go, this conditional action is the opposite of the last one. It checks that there wouldn't be a collision if we moved to a particular position on the screen. I know this is really kind of confusing to follow, but anytime we learn new things like this, it is confusing. So just bear with me and see how this plays out. So to check that the space to the right of Lazarus is free, set X to 40, the width of the box, and Y stays at 0, and enable the relative box. So just check the relative box. And then click OK. And we're going to include the change instance action. So the change instance action is in the main 1 tab. We're going to click hold, and we're going to drag it over. And we're going to select the object Laz right. Select yes to perform events. So that's new. We're going to select yes. This means that the create event of the object we're turning into will get called or activated, which is important later when we add sound effects. All right, we're not done yet. We're going to click OK. And next, we're going to include the else action from the Control tab. So this one right here, we're going to drag on. And we're going to include another check empty conditional action directly after this. So right up here in the top left, we're going to add that. This should verify that there are no boxes diagonally up and to the right of Lazarus. We're going to set X to 40, and we're going to set Y to -40, and enable the relative option, and click OK. Then next, what we're going to do is include a change instance action. So back to main one, change instance, and we're going to select object Laz jump right. Jump right. Select yes to perform events. And then we're going to click OK. Finally, we need to include an end block action. So we need to go back to control, and we need to drag the end block at the very bottom. So we've got our this one right here. If there's a collision at this position, start of block. If a position is collision free, change instance into object Lazarus right. Else, if position is collision free, change instance into object Lazarus jump right, and then the end of block. Now we need to do that whole thing for a left press event. So we're going to click Add Event, Key Press, Left. And then we're going to start by adding a key press left or check collision. So in the Control tab, we're going to drag this one over. And we're going to set X to 0 and Y to 8. Make sure relative is checked and click OK. Include the start block. Include the check empty conditional action right up here. And we're going to set X to -40 and Y to 0. And check the relative box and click OK. Next, we're going to include a change instance action. We need to go back to the main one tab for that. Change instance. We need to select object Laz left and choose yes to perform events and click OK. Now we're going to include the else action from the control tab. So back to the control tab, drag the else over, include a check empty action, and set X to -40 and Y to -40. And click the relative box and click OK. Then we need to go back to the main one tab and choose change instance. Select the object Laz jump left. Choose yes to perform events. Click OK. And finally, include an end block action to finish the block of actions. So back to control and choose the end block. And you've got everything there. And click OK. Okay, the next thing we need to do is add a step event to the standing Lazarus object to make it fall. It needs to be able to fall. So we're going to open up the standing Lazarus and we're going to add the step event. So add step, step, and step. Select that. And then what we're going to do here with that selected is we're going to go to the control and we're going to check, we're going to include a check empty action in the step event, setting X to 0 and Y to 8 and enabling the relative option. This action is going to check for empty space just below Lazarus. And then we're going to click OK, go back to move, and we're going to include a jump to position action directly after it. So there was the jump to position. And the reason we're doing this is that it will only be performed if the check empty condition is true. We need to give it the same relative settings as before so it moves into the empty space. So we're going to set X to 0 and snap to vertical at 8 and click OK. So I just realized I did something incorrect. We're not going to include this. We're going to delete it. I chose the wrong one. We need to delete this. And this is the one we need. Jump to position. It's the one with 2 X's. And we need to set X to 0 and Y to 8. And we need to select relative and click OK. We're also going to have to clean up a couple of other things that I messed up on earlier, but we'll get to that in just a second. Click OK. So now we have some cleanup to do because when we created these objects, I had you all select an incorrect action. So let's start with the object Lazarus. I want you to double click on it. And do you see how I have jump to a random position? That's not supposed to be jump to a random position. It's jump to position. So we're going to right click on that and delete it. And then we're going to add the correct one, jump to position. And for this one, we need to make sure we set X to 40 and Y stays at 0. And we need to make sure that the relative box is selected and click OK. When you're done with that, switch positions. So drag that up to the top and click OK. Now we're going to move on to object Laz left. Do the same thing pretty much. So this is what it was before. We need to right click and delete. We need to add jump to position. We need to change X to -40, Y to 0, and select relative. And click OK, and then switch the boxes. You can just click and drag and drop and make sure jump to position is on the top. All right, moving on, we're going to go to object Laz jump right, 40 and -40. I have to remember that. So right click and delete, drag jump to position. And this one is setting X to 40 and setting Y to -40 and selecting relative. Click OK and be sure to switch the actions and click OK. Finally, object Laz jump left, double click, look for the numbers. Both of them are -40. Right click and delete, add jump to position, -40, -40 and select relative, click OK, and then switch the boxes. And then click OK. And I don't think we have anything here. Yeah, we don't need to do anything with object Laz squished. So sorry for all that cleanup work, but hey, we learned some new things, didn't we? So we've gone through quite a lot of steps so far without being able to test our work. So before going any further, let's quickly create a test level for Lazarus to move around in. There are no falling boxes yet, so we'll have to create some random stacks of our own to check if the movement is working correctly. We'll just create one box type to do this, the boxes that make up the walls of the pit. So we're going to create a new sprite. So click Create New Sprite, and it's SPR_wall. And we're going to load sprite, and we're going to load the wall right here in chapter 4 of the resources. Click Open, and then we're going to click we need to, let's see, I should have gone, yeah, we go there. And then we need to click OK. We're going to create an object wall. So we're going to click the blue ball to create an object, obj_wall. We want to enable the solid, and we want to choose the wall, obviously. There we go. We want to make sure that solid block is enabled. Then we're going to click OK. And then we're going to create a new room, and we're going to call it Room Test. So here's the new room button right here. And it's not giving us, let's see, it's not giving us the area to rename the room. We're just going to keep it, I guess, as room 0, and we can go in here later and rename it. So we've got our wall selected here. And look in the toolbar at the top of the room properties here. And set both Snap X and Snap Y to 40. So we need to go to the room properties. So right up here at the top, there's a Snap X and a Snap Y. We want to set both the Snap X and Snap Y to 40. All our boxes are 40 by 40 pixels, so this will help us place them neatly on the level. The grid in the room will change accordingly. So switch to Objects. So if you're not on the Objects tab, switch there and select the wall object to place. And create a level with a number of boxes that form flat areas and a staircase. Remember, you can hold the Shift key and add multiple instances. Also, add one instance of the standing Lazarus object. So let me show you. I'll go ahead and place these. I'm holding the Shift key down and just clicking and dragging. And I'm going to do that again on this. Oop. Here, across here, and up. And then I'm going to add steps here. And just a couple more, just like that. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but you can definitely copy what I have if you want to. I've taken it right out of the tutorial. And then we're going to place the little Lazarus, standing Lazarus. So we're going to choose Objects, Object Stand, and I'm going to place Lazarus right here. And the tutorial, in the screenshot, it says to select Delete Underlying. So I'm just selecting that just in case we need it. At last, we can finally run the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to save what we've done, and we're going to test the character's movement in all the possible situations and make sure that he behaves the way you would expect. If something isn't working right, we can check our steps carefully, making sure we enabled the relative option in all actions where it was indicated. So I'm going to click on the green arrow, and I'm going to load the game so far, and I'm using my right arrow key, and I'm moving along, and there's my left arrow key. Here we go. Good. This one is a little bit of a bug here, because when you go down that far, you can't get back up. So anyway, you get stuck down in there, but that can be modified. So anyway, it works. Hope yours does too. And we're done with part 2.